No crosses, no Bibles, no religious displays of any kind in Henry County and schools there. That's an email that went out to educators and parents, and now many of them are outraged.
And if we let God back in school and back in the United States of America, He could change it.
Josh Moss is angry about an email telling teachers at Henry County schools that they can't display any symbols of their religion. The memo points out no crosses, angels, Bibles. And he's not the only one upset.
I just think that you should be able to wear what you want to wear or portray what you want to portray.
People have totally misinterpreted this, that this is a new policy, that the board has somehow come up with this hardline measure against religion, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Henry County School spokesman J.D. Hardin stresses this is nothing new, and it's not unique to Henry County. He says the email was only a reminder to school personnel that they must abide by federal laws.
Henry County Schools is not anti-religion. We have a very diverse population, but what we do have to keep in mind is that we are mandated by the federal government that we cannot have religious displays on walls and or public property.
A former football coach continues to fight for the right to pray at games. Coach Joe Kennedy made headlines when he was fired from a Washington State high school for refusing to stop praying on the 50-yard line after games. In August, Kennedy filed a lawsuit against the school district on the grounds they violated his religious rights. Kennedy also filed for a preliminary injunction that would allow him to coach while waiting on a ruling in the suit. That injunction was rejected, and this week he filed an appeal in Washington, D.C. The former Marine tells CBN News he is simply standing up for the principles he fought to protect.
I just want to stand up for, the religious freedoms that everybody's supposed to have. I served our country for 20 years to support and defend the Constitution, and I don't understand how the freedoms that are in the Constitution don't apply to people in America.
Well, we are aware that the culture that we've been part of for so many years is beginning to move from being just a post-Christian culture to literally being an anti-Christian culture. We've heard that the Civil Rights Commission of the United States has declared that the traditional understanding of the First Amendment that protects conscience is no longer the way they're going to view it. They see a commitment to traditional marriage as an expression of hate speech, a belief that genders are divinely given as part of our personhood as some sort of opposition to the norms and standards of an enlightened culture. And as we begin to see that taught and then applied in government policy, it's creating a whole new context in the American setting. Students who've studied at seminaries through the past many years have been used to the thought that the church was a value-added contribution to a community. But now what we're seeing is that those that hold to a historic Judeo-Christian worldview are viewed as somehow not worthy of being protected by First Amendment liberties, that they are perpetrators of prejudice and hostility.
At 42.4 million, there are now more immigrants, legal and illegal, in America than ever before, fueled by massive flood from Muslim nations, and the growing numbers are substantially impacting public services like public schools, according to a weighty new analysis of Census Bureau data. One impact of note, there are 10.9 million students from immigrant households in public schools, accounting for 23% of all public school students, according to the Center for Immigration Studies.
Friday is a time for prayer and fellowship at this mosque in Northern Virginia.
Anyone need to register to vote?
But it's also a time for civic duty. Out of a population of 320 million people in the United States, just over 3 million are Muslim. But that figure is expected to more than double by 2050.
Sign here.
Getting members of the 15,000 families that attend Dar al-Hijra to register is now part of a national push to make sure 1 million more Muslims are poised to exercise their right to vote in November.
Are you registered to vote at the current address?
The goal is not just to register voters and to get them out to vote, but to understand that building relationships with our elected leaders is the way to build power. And that's our end goal.
Phone number, please.
Kamal Boushani says he's voted 3 times since becoming an American citizen.
So it's my role to select the person that I find is good for me and good for the country.
a sense of personal responsibility that many believe resonates in an ever-growing Muslim community.
We're also well represented in swing states. So Virginia, Ohio, Florida, we have large populations of 60, 70, 80, 120,000. And in really close elections, we can tip the results to the candidate we're favoring if it's that close.
According to the San Francisco Gate, the Government Accountability Office has accepted a request from members of Congress in order to review the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States and to carefully determine whether its legal powers have kept pace with the influx of international buyers targeting American companies. Of particular concern for some is the recent investment by some Chinese companies in Hollywood. The letter explicitly singled out Chinese Dalian Wanda Group's acquisition of Hollywood's legendary entertainment and its once pursuit of Paramount Pictures.
Thousands of college students poured out of their dorm rooms to march, chant,
I got a balloon for you. Don't you want a balloon?
and do some late-night clown hunting. Rumors of clown sightings at Penn State spread on social media, triggering the clown mob. One student tweeted, "The clowns have come to Penn State. This is not okay." And the school newspaper shared this photo of a clown projected onto campus apartments. Clown phobia is now sweeping campuses across the country after what authorities are now calling a series of social media pranks gone awry. At Merrimack College in Massachusetts, the campus was on lockdown after a Twitter report of a clown with a pitchfork in a dorm.
You get shot, usually the zombie will have to, take down their headband and respawn a bit later. But I'm invincible, so that doesn't really happen to me, which is really, really frightening for a lot of the players because all they can do really is run. Go! Go! Go!
It came out of an idea that we had when we were uni students about how long we could survive in a zombie apocalypse at our university. We turned that into a game for our friends, and then it grew out from there.
Bracing for Matthew. Tonight, this is the scramble along the eastern seaboard.
I'm preparing, buying rain gear and flashlights.
I just came to pick up the generator and some extra fuel tanks, just in case.
A run on supplies, lumber, groceries, gas, and water. Today, South Carolina's governor urging over 1 million people to evacuate from coastal communities starting Wednesday.
This is not something that we want to play with. If you don't get out in time, you might actually get stuck. And I think that's worst case scenario, is to be stuck on the coast.
The evacuation zone covering 100 miles from the shoreline. Many coastal schools closing as residents prepare for 5 to 7 foot storm surges.
Make sure we have 3 days worth of food and water, any prescriptions, making sure those are filled.
Even the National Guard is at the ready. Hurricane Matthew is twisting its way north, threatening to pound Florida and the Carolinas, all under states of emergency. In Florida, some are streaming to higher ground.
Storm surge is coming. We don't want to take any chances.
Parts of the Sunshine State already under a hurricane watch. Tonight, it's picture perfect here, but danger is on the horizon and closing in.
Kids as young as 8 years old go to learn military tactics at the Park of the Revolution's Children. American and Israeli flags are shooting targets for kids at this theme park in Iran. The point? To instill anti-Western sentiments and promote national pride. Kids wear outfits similar to those worn by Iran's Revolutionary Guards. Groups crawl, shoot, and navigate their way through obstacle course-like sections that resemble Iranian-Iraqi war sites.
You can go to hell. Mr. Obama, you can go to hell. You better choose purgatory.
Experts said on Tuesday, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte would face major obstacles to following through on his threat to reduce purchases of U.S. weapons in favor of Russian and Chinese arms. This would include retraining a military deeply accustomed to working with the United States. In speeches in Manila on Tuesday, Duterte said that the United States did not want to sell missiles and other weapons to the Philippines. He added that Russia and China had told him they could provide them easily. His comments were the latest in a near-daily barrage of hostility toward the United States. Because of the comments, the long-standing alliance between the U.S. and the Philippines that is important to the U.S. strategy of rebalancing its forces toward Asia and countering an assertive China has been called into serious question.
For almost 8 years, you cannot stop me. It is my sacred duty, although it may sound shit to you.
ISIS is on the run, but the question is to where? The terrorist group's manpower has reduced in the Middle East. Its troops have also been pushed out of their Libyan strongholds. An ISIS supporter said Libya was a strategic gateway from which pandemonium could be wrought into southern Europe. Their supporter also called Libya the key to other countries, such as Egypt, Mali, and Algeria. President Obama thinks the aftermath of the 2011 Libyan intervention was the worst mistake of his presidency, and it may have helped ISIS. After 2001, Gaddafi supporters fled to Mali with some of his weapons, eventually hijacking smuggling routes. If ISIS can exploit marginalized communities in Mali the way it did in Iraq and Libya, the terrorist group could gain more power.
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad says that his country is at the center of the battle against global terrorism, with current developments in his country affecting world politics. In an interview with a Tehran-based Foreign Affairs magazine, Assad hailed Iran for playing a significant role in his nation's resistance against terrorism. He added that before the crisis began in Syria in 2011, Washington and its Western allies were pressuring Damascus into renouncing its alliance with Iran and the axis of anti-Israel resistance in the region. He noted that the Syrian people, regardless of their sectarian or tribal affiliations, are supporting the government and army in the fight against militants. The Syrian president said Western countries and their regional allies are trying to install a puppet regime in Damascus, which would only serve their interests.
Now, the Russian Defense Ministry says it has deployed an advanced missile system to the Syrian port of Tartus.
The S-300 anti-aircraft missile system has indeed been sent to the Syrian Arab Republic. The system is designed to bolster the security of the naval base in Tartus.
Now, Igor Konashenkov says that the S-300 is a defensive system and poses no threat to anyone. He also says Russia is surprised by the West's reaction to the news of the deployment. The Pentagon has questioned Russia's real intention of sending the anti-aircraft missile system to Syria. Pentagon spokesman Peter Cook says no anti-Damascus terrorist group has an air force, warning that Washington will closely monitor Moscow's activities. Last year, Russia deployed its newest air defense system, S-400, to Syria. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the S-400 system and short-range missiles would remain on permanent combat duty in the war-torn country.
Now, the Russian embassy in Damascus has been hit by mortar fire from the rebel-held area.
We're told that 3 shells targeted the embassy in its vicinity. One of the shells landed inside the embassy compound and 2 shells landed very close by. Nobody was injured. However, those weren't the only shells to target Damascus. There was a lot, dozens apparently. One of the shells, one mortar round, landed just 50 meters from a hotel where I was staying in Damascus, and which I left only yesterday. We're told that they were all fired from Jobar. Jobar is the closest area that rebels hold to Damascus itself. It's a small, very much demolished enclave. But here I've got to say that we're talking about Jaish al-Islam, the army of Islam, Islamists who control this area. And they launched this attack just hours after the United States announced it's pulling out of peace talks with Russia, the Syrian peace process. No more ceasefires, no more talks, no more negotiations. And suddenly we have this unprecedented, really, in the last few weeks, attack.
In Venezuela, a small scratch can become a matter of life and death. Lack of antibiotics put 3-year-old Ashley's life at risk and almost led to her leg being amputated. As her mother explains, it all started with a simple grazed knee, which she had even cleaned with alcohol. She fell down and scratched herself. I mean, we never expected that a scratch would cause all of this. Then 2 weeks later, she had a reaction. She got arthritis, septic arthritis. Ashley's paediatrician, Dr. Richard Rangel, explains how her situation became so drastic so quickly. Ashley Pacheco is a 3-year-old girl who was admitted to our hospital for a skin infection caused by a resistant germ. This germ reached her blood. From there, it went to her lungs and caused pneumonia, which subsequently caused an additional infection in her heart, an endocarditis. In order to take control of the infection, she should have initially received a course of vancomycin, but she was unable to receive it because no one had the drug. Last spring, Dr. Rangel witnessed the deaths of 5 children in 1 week through lack of antibiotics. Public hospitals have even run out of basic equipment like soap and alcohol. The number of beds has fallen 40% since 2014, and diagnostic facilities are out of service. According to the government, 1 in 3 patients admitted to public hospitals last year died.
Flint, Michigan is dealing with yet another crisis. Health officials say the city is fighting an outbreak of a highly contagious stomach illness. It's called shigellosis, and it's not pleasant. People infected with the bacteria can have diarrhea, fever, and stomach cramps. And officials say it's spreading like wildfire in Flint because residents are refusing to wash their hands. Flint residents are still wary of the city's water a year after experts found elevated levels of lead in the supply. And that's convinced many people to forego some basic hygiene practices, even though the federal government has declared the water safe when filtered. The county health director told CNN people aren't bathing because they're scared. Some people have mentioned that they're not going to expose their children to the water again. And as a result, Genesee County, where Flint is, has seen at least 53 cases of shigellosis since October 2015. The city normally only gets about 20 cases per year.
Well, over the weekend, Deutsche Bank customers were restricted from cash withdrawals due to a, quote, IT outage. That's a convenient excuse. Zero Hedge reports, as Reuters and Handelsblatt reported as well, the bank, Deutsche Bank, has suffered a further blow to its image over the weekend with a third IT outage in the space of a few months on Saturday. Well, apparently this latest outage, or maybe they just shut down their computers altogether to prevent the bank runs that were happening just before the weekend. Handelsblatt adds, quote, that among rumors about state aid, okay, this is now about the bailout, among rumors about state aid, the dramatic fall in its stock price, and the attack by hedge funds on the most important domestic bank, now come reports of a new IT glitch. Customers cannot access their cash because it's blocked, according to a customer who complained. I'm stunned. I can't make weekend purchases since I can't get neither cash nor pay by card. So, what do you think? It was planned? Or do you think it was a true IT glitch? Do you think they're trying to stop and block the bank runs?